walked home, and on the walk home, my arms started to go numb. And I remember I walked into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror, and that was when I knew that I needed to go to the emergency room. Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are just joining me, my name is Laura Lee. I'm a certified personal trainer, a certified nutrition coach, and I currently train clients one-on-one through my own virtual coaching program. So today's video is going to be my injury stories. This has been highly requested on Instagram, so I figured I would film a YouTube video and talk about it. So this is going to be the story of how I dislocated my left shoulder a few years ago. I promise I won't get too graphic, so don't worry about that. And along the way of telling you my story, I'm also going to be giving some tips and tricks for how to avoid injury in the gym, especially with weightlifting. And also, if you do happen to get injured, how you can recover and heal quicker. You can see Olivia is also going to be joining us for the story time. And just a quick disclaimer before we get into the video, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional. This is just based on my own personal experience. So if you do happen to get injured or you're worried about injury in the gym, please seek medical advice and help. I also just want to say that my injury was 100% avoidable, so you can train in the gym, you can lift heavy weights and avoid injury as long as you're being safe. So my hope in sharing my story is so you can learn from my mistakes and not get injured. And with that, let's get started. So I dislocated my left shoulder in the summer of 2019. Now I remember very distinctly, it was a Saturday. It was pretty busy at the gym and I was doing upper body day. So just like chest, triceps, shoulders, a little bit of mix of everything upper body day. So it's towards the end of my workout and I was doing skull crushers. And if you don't know what that move is, it's where you're laying flat on a bench and you have one of those like easy curl bars. I'll insert a picture on the screen if I can find one. So it was like a curly bar, and it's where you lay on the bench and you bring the bar down towards your forehead. That's why it's called skull crushers. So it's a bending down and then pulling it back up towards the sky. So I was looking for a weight to do this exercise with the easy curl bar, and I couldn't find the weight that I normally used. So this is already where we get to tip number one. So when you are doing exercises at the gym, make sure that you are picking the weight that is right for you. Don't pick a heavier weight than you've ever used before just because you can't find the weight that you wanted to use. My tips for you here are to move on, so do another exercise and then come back later and see if that weight is available. Use a lighter weight and do more repetitions, or just skip the exercise and do it the next time. It's not gonna kill you to not do it that time. Do it the next time you're in the gym. So I did not take my own advice, clearly, and I picked a weight for the easy curl bar that was 10 pounds heavier than I normally did for skull crushers, and I had actually never used that weight before. And here's already where we get to tip number two. If you're going up in weights, always have a spotter. And I don't mean just for the compound lifts like bench press, squat, things like that. I mean for any exercise that you're doing, if you are going up in weight, have a spotter just in case. Now, I think the reason I didn't ask for a spotter was number one, the gym was busy. And number two, the gym was full of gym bros at the time. So I just didn't have anyone at the time at the gym that I felt comfortable asking to spot me. But here's what I'll say is that it just doesn't matter. It's okay if it's uncomfortable or you feel awkward doing it. Chances are that person that you're asking to spot you is gonna think absolutely nothing of it and just spot you and be done with it and move on. So even if you feel uncomfortable, just ask someone, because it's better to be safe than get injured like me. So I was using a heavier weight than I ever had. I did not have a spotter. And I remember I laid down on the bench and I did about 2 of the exercises of skull crushers, and I felt like I knew it was heavy, but I was like, all right, I think I can do this. And then I go for the 3rd rep and I can't bring the bar up. So it's on like my forehead or near my forehead, and I could not bring the bar up to the ceiling. Like, it was too heavy, and I remember being like, uh-oh, what do I do? This is bad. So I just remember kind of panicking. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't bring the bar up, and then I was like, I can't drop it because it's gonna drop on my head. Now this is where it gets a little fuzzy. I'm not sure exactly what I did. I guess it's trauma that I don't exactly remember, but something happened to where the weight ended up sliding sideways. I was holding the bar like this, and my left shoulder ended up rotating in a way it was not supposed to, and I dislocated my left shoulder. Here's the other thing that was not smart. So I didn't know that I dislocated my shoulder at the time. Like, I knew something happened, I knew it wasn't good. I stopped working out immediately, but I didn't look in the mirror at the time, so I didn't know the extent of my injury. I've never had a broken bone, I've never had an injury up until this point, so I just had no idea what it was. I thought I had pulled a muscle. And so at the time, we were living in an area where I walked to the gym. So I just like got up, I left, I stopped working out, and I walked home. I definitely like should have told the gym, I should have like gotten help. I remember my boyfriend was out of town at this time, so I didn't like know who to go to, and we had like recently moved to the area, so I didn't really have any like friends around. I didn't like know who to call. I also lived in Boston, Massachusetts, and my family lived in Texas, so they were literally thousands of miles away. So essentially I was alone, and I decided to walk home thinking that I just had like pulled a muscle or something in my arm. So as I was walking home, and I mean really it's like a 5-minute, maybe even 7-minute walk, it's not that bad, but still I should have like called for help, I should have gone straight to the emergency room, but I'm thinking like, oh, it's not that bad, I'll just like ice it. And so I walked home, and on the walk home, my arm started to go numb. So I started losing feeling in my arm. And this is definitely when I started to freak out even more and started to realize maybe it was more than just a pulled muscle. So I walk home and I call my boyfriend, and I'm basically like blubbering. And I'm like, I don't know what I did something. And he's like, I'm not there, I don't know. Like, what's happening? Can you describe it to me? He's not a doctor. He doesn't know, what's happened to me. He can't see it. And I remember I walked into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror, and that was when I knew that I needed to go to the emergency room. And I don't want to get like too graphic or too in detail because I know that that's like gross, but yeah, if you've ever had like a broken bone or a dislocated shoulder, you'll know it was something was not in the place that it was supposed to be. My shoulder was not in the place that it was supposed to be in my arm. So because I didn't know anyone in the area, my boyfriend was out of town, my family was thousands of miles away, I called an Uber to take me to urgent care and got there. It's like wasn't too far away, so I got there pretty quickly, and they were fortunately able to get me back to see a physician pretty quickly because they saw the injury. So at this point it's probably like 30 minutes to 45 minutes since my injury, and they basically had to work to get my shoulder back into its socket. And this is at the point, like, obviously this physician was able to tell me that I dislocated my shoulder. And if you've watched my past videos, you know I have anxiety. So I am absolutely freaking out because I've never had an injury before. I've never broken a bone. I don't have my family. I don't have my boyfriend. I don't have anyone. And I'm definitely a weenie when it comes to pain. And so I'm just like, what? I was definitely in shock. I could not believe that my left shoulder was dislocated. Like, I just didn't think it was real. So they spent some time getting my shoulder back into its socket, and it actually didn't work for the first couple of times. And then they took me back and they got x-rays, and then they took me back and tried a different way, and they were able to get it back into place. So I would say probably an hour from the time of injury, they were finally able to get my shoulder back into place. If you don't know anything about dislocations, especially shoulder dislocations, the time that the bone is out of the socket matters. So without getting too graphic, the more time that your shoulder is spent out in dislocation, the harder it is to heal, and the more likely that you'll need surgery. So after I left urgent care, I basically had my arm in a sling for about a week. I didn't want to wear the sling any longer than that because my arm started to get, my whole arm started to get really stiff, and I didn't want it to be like immobile. I wanted to move it around just so all the muscles didn't get stiff. So I definitely wore it like at night when I was sleeping and things like that, just to be careful. But I wore the sling for about a week, and then I saw a doctor who was able to confirm with x-rays and things like that that I had dislocated my shoulder. I was very fortunate in that I did not need to have surgery, so I just needed to let it heal. And that meant about a month of doing no physical activity. Like I could go on like walks, but no physical activity. And then about a month after my injury, I started physical therapy. So here's what I'll be giving some tips for if you do happen to get injured, or if you ever get injured in the future, save this video so you can hear these tips from someone who has been injured. So physical therapy is going to be your best friend. Now, I know that not everyone can afford physical therapy. I know that that is like a privilege. I had great insurance at the time, and I was also in Boston, which, if you don't know, is like a medical hub. It's like a medical and STEM hub. So I had the most amazing physicians working on me. And so I had a great physical therapist, and I went to physical therapy twice a week for 3 months. And I did exercises for my shoulder and to rehab my shoulder there. And then I was given homework to do. So basically the same sort of exercises, but at home. So I was working on that every day at home. So I took my physical therapy really seriously because I wanted to heal as fast as I could and get back in the gym. So that's going to be one of my biggest tips for you if you are healing from an injury, is really take physical therapy seriously. Do it when you're there at the physical therapist, and also do it at home, and keep it up, because that is really what helped me bounce back the most. The other thing that really helped me was sleep. And I feel like sleep is the foundation of fitness in general. If you are not sleeping well, then that kind of messes up everything fitness-wise. So especially when you're injured, you want to make sure that you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep, maybe even more when you're injured. So I really prioritized sleep at that time. And obviously, since I couldn't work out, I couldn't lift weights, I definitely went on walks every day, but I couldn't lift weights. So I was making sure that in the time I would normally go to the gym, which was the morning, I was taking that time to sleep in and rest and recover. Another tip to help just recover and be okay also mentally during your injury, because if you've ever been injured, injury is as much a mental battle as it is a physical battle, especially if you can't do the thing you love, which was definitely my case. It was devastating to me, honestly, to not be able to weightlift. So I needed to find something else to sort of replace that for those months besides the physical therapy exercises I was doing. So I chose walking. I absolutely love walking. It's so nice to just be able to put on some music, put on a podcast, and go on a walk in nature. So I would do that every day. Walking really helped me heal physically and just kind of move my body, make sure it wasn't stiff or anything like that. But it also helped me mentally during this time. So if you can, if you're able to, obviously if you have a leg injury, that's probably going to be hard. But if you have an injury where you're still able to find some other form of movement, I highly recommend doing that to replace weightlifting or whatever you're doing that you can't do because of your injury. So physical therapy, sleep, and finding some other form of exercise. Now, the other tip that I'll say is to make sure you're eating enough. Now, this was really hard for me during this time because, as I said, it's a big mental battle. If you've watched my other videos, you also know I have a previous history of an eating disorder. So during this time, I didn't relapse. I just want to say that first of all. But it was definitely hard in the sense that some of those old thoughts came back. So I knew I wasn't weightlifting. I knew I wasn't exercising as much. So sometimes I would have the thought of like, oh, well, maybe I should be eating a little less because I'm not, doing as much physical activity, or maybe I should cut down on carbs because, I'm not like going hard in the gym. But luckily I chose to not listen to those thoughts, and I knew basically from both my physical therapist and my doctor, they had said that you need to make sure you're eating properly, that you're fueling your body, and that's going to help you heal faster. So like I said, I was in physical therapy going twice a week for about 3 months, and then probably in the 4th month I went once a week, and this sort of like slowly weaned off, but I was still doing those exercises at home. And I would say probably 5 to 6 months later I was able to go back to the gym. Now, if you know anything about strength loss. Obviously, if you're not working out for a long period of time, you are going to lose muscle. So I did lose a lot of muscle mass, but I was able to gain it back pretty quickly just because your muscles do bounce back, especially at this point I had been lifting for several years. So when you build up that kind of muscle, you do tend to bounce back pretty quickly. But that being said, you know, a shoulder injury does affect a lot of things. Like I couldn't barbell squat, I couldn't deadlift, I couldn't do any of those big things for a really long time. So another tip I have for you if you do happen to get injured is just to really ease back into it. I had to go back to the beginning with weights, doing like 10 pounds, 15 pounds, you know, I would do like lat pull downs, and actually my physical therapist recommended that to me to strengthen my shoulder. So weights was actually kind of awesome because I could ease back into weights and it would help strengthen my shoulder, certain exercises anyway, but I had to go way back to the beginning and basically essentially start as if it was the beginning of my fitness journey. So I would say it probably took me fully a year to just heal and feel comfortable again, doing squats, doing anything with the barbell resting on my shoulder, doing deadlifts, and always just making sure that I'm careful. And obviously now, since I have been injured, I do my utmost best to avoid injury. Skull crushers, I do them now. I avoided them for many months after my injury, I won't lie. But I knew that I couldn't just like avoid an exercise or be scared of something. I didn't want to be scared of it. So I do them. I intentionally choose to do them at a lighter weight. I'm not going to be trying to go up and weight on them or like go ham on that exercise. Like I'm just not going to do that. So I do really lightweight when I do skull crushers. I don't do them super often, but I try to incorporate them just so I'm not scared of them, if that makes sense. So I feel super lucky that I was able to heal my shoulder through physical therapy, through sleep and things like that, and I did not have to have surgery. Probably not going to be doing anything like baseball or anything that's going to put me at high risk, because if you don't know, if you've dislocated something, especially like a shoulder, you're much more likely to have it be injured again. And I'm definitely where I was strength-wise before my injury. Now, my injury happened in 2019, and then I would say that I was just getting back into the gym and like strength training again when the pandemic happened. So that kind of put me on a little like hiatus from strength training or like building back muscle. But definitely I would say in the last like year and a half, I've definitely been able to get back to where I was. And that's just life. Life happens. You know, you're not going to be building strength 365 days out of the year every year. I also just was like really embarrassed about my injury for a long time because it was something that was avoidable if I had just been a little safer, if I had not gone up in weight, if I had just had a spotter, you know, I wouldn't have dislocated my left shoulder. But I feel like now that this has happened to me, I'm definitely more careful in the gym and I prioritize my safety over building strength. So if I can't get a spotter, if my boyfriend can't spot me on bench press, I'm not gonna go up in weights. I'm just gonna do normal weights and then maybe next time I'll go up. So I feel like that's another tip. At the end of the day, if it's just not a safe environment for you to go up in weights or to try to build strength, then just do what you have been doing at the safe weight and then try going up the next time. Like nothing is going to happen to you if you don't get to go up in that weight. You'll be okay. So that is the story of my injury. It's been about 4 years now. I have not been injured since. And like I said, injury is pretty much completely avoidable if you just follow safety precautions. So I hope you found some of these tips helpful for avoiding injury in the gym, or maybe you're gonna save this video in case you do ever get injured on how to just recover and get back into it. So go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below and let me know what kind of other videos you'd like to see on my channel. Make sure to follow me on Instagram for daily health and wellness tips. And I will see you guys in the next one.